All right, while we get going here, Rodrigo, would you please update the roll to reflect that Jeff Wood's present? And we'll return to open session, and we'll begin with public comments related to the February 14th agenda items. No public comments. Thank you. Item 6, consider and act on a resolution for emergency closures. Sorry, Anna, I got started without you. All right, we're going to move on to item 8. We'll hit item 6. We're going to item 8. We'll come back to item 6. Missed school days due to inclement weather report. Item 8, Kevin Parker.
Just wanted to give a really brief update. Now, this communication's gone out to the community, but as you know, we missed a day at the end of January and 3 days at the beginning of February, and I wanted to make sure that everyone was caught up and understood how we were going to not really make up those days, but satisfy the state of Texas's idea of making up those days. So we missed January 31st, and we also missed February 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Really, if you look at what we're required to do, the Student Attendance and Accountability Handbook that the state of Texas provides to us to really guide us on these things, tell us that we have to satisfy two things before we can apply for a waiver day. The first thing is use any banked minutes that we have over the mandatory 75,600 instructional minutes. And we also have to use any days that are dedicated to bad weather makeup days that are in our calendar already. So that's per campus, not necessarily as a district as a whole, but we look at those things for each campus. So once both of these requirements are met, then we can apply for a waiver if the waiver is still necessary. So if we look at Lovejoy's campuses, we obviously have different stop times and the duration of minutes that we go each and every day. When you look at our K-6 campuses, they attend 73,625 minutes per year. That's 435 minutes per day. We have banked 125 minutes. And you may say, well, how do we bank 125 minutes if we're only going 73,625? We are allotted waiver days from the state, or waiver minutes from the state each year for professional development days. We're allowed 5 professional development days each year that count towards those 75,600, and we can use 420 minutes for each one of those waiver days. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that we're allowed to use 2,100 minutes per year for professional development. If you add that into the 73,625 for our K-6 campuses, that's how we've accrued 125 banked minutes. For Willow Springs, the same thing. They attend 74,400 minutes. You add that to the 2,100 minutes of professional development days. They've banked 940 minutes. Lovejoy even more so. They attend 74,895. Couple that with the 2,100 minutes, and they've attended 1,395 over the 75,600 required minutes. So what do we do? How do we make those up? All campuses, remember, we have to satisfy both of those things before we can apply for a waiver. All of our campuses are going to attend this coming February 20th. We're going to attend school on February 20th to make up January 31st. We're going to attend on April 10th, which is one of our bad weather makeup days in our calendar, to satisfy February 1st. And then we get into what are we going to do per campus. So on the missed day of February 2nd, we can file a waiver for Puster, Hart, and Sloan Creek because they do not have enough banked minutes to accommodate that February 2nd. However, Willow Springs and Lovejoy High School do. So we won't have to file a waiver. We can use banked minutes to not have to make up February 2nd. And then February 3rd, the same thing. We'll file a waiver for our K-6 campuses. We'll use bank minutes for Willow Springs and Lovejoy High School. One thing that it's important to note is in the media, you hear some campuses or districts doing different things, and that's simply because their days are different lengths. Their elementary schools probably go to school longer than ours. We're very low. We only bank 125 minutes. If you go 10 minutes more each day, over 171 days, that's a lot of banked minutes. And so they have to make up these days depending on how long their school days are. they do it in different ways. So that's, the community may ask, well, why do I hear that Dallas ISD or Frisco ISD is making their days up differently? And it's simply because their days are different things. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Item 6, come back, Ms. Kennedy.
Sorry.
Consider an act on a resolution for emergency closure.
Yes, as before you, I have given you an executive document. Basically, what we're asking is for February 2nd and 3rd. As Kevin mentioned, January 31st and February 1st, we'd make up those days. But for February 2nd and 3rd, what I'm asking is that we make our employees whole. And what that does is it's mainly impacts our auxiliary personnel, our paras, our aides, those hourly employees. So we would pay them for those 2 days, and their salaries annualized, so their pay would not be impacted. Okay. I put in there, we do have policy DEA that allows us to do that. And I attached that on page, I believe, page 12, and also asked for a resolution allowing us to do that. So it is the recommendation. First, any questions about that? I think we've done that before.
To the makeup days and the waivers were made whole as budget neutral.
It's budget neutral, correct. It's budget neutral. It's already budgeted. It's not going to impact that at all. Questions from? Yeah, according to policy DEA for February 2nd and 3rd. Okay, thank you.
All right, item 7, supplemental benefit review.
Oh, yes. I'm pretty excited about this, guys. Basically, we had to renegotiate all of our benefits this past year. So we were on a really kind of a 2-year rotation. So I just finished that in January, and these are supplemental benefits for fall, so for our staff in the fall. I did want to point out that, this goes directly to our strategic plan, ways that we can help support our teachers, and looking at, ways to save on money, and also looking at retention strategies as we move forward. Currently, our district, and most districts don't do this, so we're pretty excited. We do offer them a $15,000 basic life term insurance. It costs the district 60 cents, well worth it. But the best thing is the telehealth services. We give telehealth services for every employee in their family, and it's $6. And y'all can imagine it is used. So it is definitely a benefit to our teachers, especially, now, you basically do a Zoom, it's an app on your phone. So a lot of positive there. And we pay for everyone if you take medical benefits with us or not. Okay. So anyway, so $660 a person, it's definitely worth it. If you look at our supplemental participation, you can see, of course, 100% is our life insurance, and then telehealth, of course, is 100% because we provide for everyone. The next ones that we look at are dental and vision. So in dental, and for 21, we did about 49%, 46% this year, and then for vision, 43% and 38%. But that's everything that we currently offer. One thing I noticed, just coming from a different district, our dental plans are fairly high for the employee only. What we currently have was United Healthcare, and if you look in this first column right here, you can see for an employee only it was $36.06. Okay, we went back and asked them to quote us again, and for employee only it was $38.95. Okay, so we're going to have an 8% rate increase plus. And then they would guarantee the rate for 20 rate guarantee longer, or 12 months rate guarantee. So we got other bids. And so we looked at MetLife, and MetLife actually was less expensive. It's $34.98 for the employee, $69. The premiums were lower. We get a 24-month rate guarantee, and then they can only raise it by 6%. So those are some things that we look at as we get into and look at supplemental benefits. So I definitely think it's something very positive. It was very similar, similar benefits, nothing much different, but you're changing insurance carriers there. Okay. The next one we looked at was vision, and y'all know I wear glasses, and so this was a big one for me, and mainly because I only got frames every 2 years. Okay. And anyway, so we looked at what our current plan was, Avivis, and then looking at MetLife, we could get frames every 12 months. So looking at also the deductibles were somewhat similar, the allowances. We had a rate guarantee for 48 months on that. We actually were saving about 37 cents on the in-network and $1.14 on the out-of-network there. But when we compared them, very comparable, but saving our employees a little bit of money. So we just spent some time took some time to look at those there. Some of the takeaways, one thing that I noticed is when I started looking at claims, 19%, about 20% of our claims are to two dentists, and they're local dentists, but they're out of network. And so basically I called them and said, who do you use? They both use Cigna. Cigna would not quote us. And I'm going to show, and the reason they wouldn't quote us is because if you look at our dental collected revenue versus our dental incurred claims, our BCR, our benefit cost ratios are high. From what I understand, industry standards are about 75%. So that's probably why we didn't get a quote from them. One of them also used Delta Dentists, and we couldn't get a quote from them either. So anyway, so that's probably why our rates are high, because those are out of network. So if we go to in-network, and I know a dentist is very personal. I've used the same one for 20 years, so I understand that. We also looked at vision. So we're moving from that 12-12 plan, moving from the 12-12-24 plan to the 12-12 plan. So kind of the takeaway there is, of course, out-of-network claims are also going to be higher. So we're going to be more intentional in providing in-network lists to our employees this year when we talk with them and talk to them about the differences, so we can try to keep those monthly premiums down. Also, if we go to MetLife for dental and vision, we did receive lower premiums, longer rate guarantees, and better coverage there. So spent some time doing that. Okay. Just going through some of the product review, we talked about dental and how many dental and vision and how many employees use that. Cancer, we got a rate pass, so we won't renew again until next year. Disability, we had a rate pass also, so we go to 9/2026, which is great for our teachers also. Basic life, volunteer life, all of those were very similar. So next year we'll look at telehealth again. But AD&D, those were pretty much rate passes there, which we were excited about. Critical illness, we are moving to Chubb, and the reason we're doing that is it's basically the same plan, it's just a better price. And we also here, which I was a little surprised at, we did not offer hospital indemnity. So basically it's kind of that gap insurance. It's no pre-existing conditions. So with young people and planning families, usually you offer that. It pays for the hospital there. It's about, if the $1,500 benefit was $20. So if you don't have anything planned, it's $20 a month if you go into the hospital. But if you're planning a family, you can pay, I think it's around $45 a month, and it's up to a $5,000 benefit. It also allowed 2 hospitalizations. So that's kind of a big deal for teachers that are planning families, and especially if they know they're going to do that. I talked to Travis. He said, yeah, he's used that quite a bit the past couple of years as we were visiting that, since he just had some little ones there. Questions about supplemental benefits, anything with that? We still don't know anything about TRS and medical benefits, but I'll be bringing that to you when I have that information this spring. Okay. Yep. Well, you're welcome. It was very informative. I learned a lot too during that, so thank you.
All right, item 9, special education programming update.
Good morning. This is just, I wanted to give a brief update on some work we've been doing over the past several months with our special education programming. And this is kind of just a big picture view, and we'll be coming forward over throughout the spring with updates and some actions moving forward. We've been working with HR on staffing and looking at not just retention and recruitment efforts, but also looking at case manager assignments and loads when we're across the district. We made some adjustments to that prior at the beginning of the year, and we're still monitoring that. We're also looking at staffing allocations on our campuses as well too. There are some campuses that we are in the process. We have some positions posted As some changes have come about in the setting, we've decided we needed some additional support. So our principals are working with HR on securing hopefully some staff members on that. Also compensation, what are we doing to recruit? This is an area that is a shortage area, and we've been talking about that with you over the past year and a half. Also just looking at the roles and the responsibilities of our staff, of special education staff, and balancing that so that they're able to ensure students are getting what they need, but also all the other responsibilities that come with special education programming. We're ensuring that they have the time allocated for that. So we've also been doing a significant amount of professional development. If you recall last year when we had the needs assessment completed for the program, what came out of that, one of the top 3 areas was capacity, building capacity. And so these are just some of the areas that we've been doing some work with our staff on helping support teachers and also campus leaders. We have, one of the things I do want to point out here are case manager meetings. Our special education staff are facilitating those weekly. We're offering it after school for an hour. So specifically it's involving all of our special education teachers, and our principals are a part of that as well too. So it's also just kind of getting a pulse so that we can monitor and monitor the support that may be needed in that area. We're starting some lunch and learn series with our campus principals next week. So we're excited about that. And then we've got some resources out there that are that the department's putting out for our teachers and our administrators for reference purposes. Some programs under review, I just wanted to highlight here. Again, I mentioned that we're looking at case manager assignments and loads. We're also looking at our transition programming. And so we'll be coming forward with some updates on that in the future. Also looking at our occupational prep and vocational exploration for our high school students in the program. Also it is looking at analyzing and kind of determining how can we improve our school and home communication systems. So not just from kind of a big picture level from a campus principal, but also how can we support our teachers so that parents are informed increasing those opportunities for that. So we're just kind of looking at our systems for that. Staffing allocations, again, is an area we're looking at. Assessment planning and duties. When I'm talking about that, I'm talking about our itinerants, our staff that completes the assessments. How can we utilize them to also help build capacity on our campuses and support on our campuses? Parent partnerships, and then additional planning time and work time for staff are some areas. And then again, with parent partnerships, all of that falls into this. We have the special education advisory team that we implemented this year. We've met several times throughout the year, also offering some educational and informational meetings with our parents. We've updated our website and then newsletters, and then looking how that can trickle down to the campus level. So just wanted to put some information out there for you to let you know what we've been working on over the last several months. Thank you.
I said really appreciate the update. Getting used to this mic. Thank you very much. Any questions for Lori? All right, thank you. All right, item 10 will be House Bill 3 goals update.
Okay, I'm going to ask Aaron Perkins and Mary Mullen and Bree Smith if they can go over to the microphone over there, just in case you guys have some specific questions about some of the work that we've been doing since the beginning of the year. If you recall, this was brought forward earlier in the year that part of House Bill 3 is that the board adopts goals with some detailed plans about 3 areas. The areas are early childhood literacy proficiency, early childhood math proficiency, and then college, career, military readiness. So these are the goals that were approved by the board on September 26th of 2022. And the overall goals for early literacy is that we would be the percent of third grade students that meet grade level or above on STAR reading will increase from 81% to 87% by June 2025. So this is over 3 years. With math, the increase on STAR Math would increase from 76% to 85% by June 2025. And then the percentage of graduates that meet the criteria for CCMR will increase from 94% to 98%. These were I'm not going to go into detail on this, but these were the specific targets that we identified in closing those gaps. Some of the things that strategies that we outlined that we were going to be engaging in for the early childhood literacy is that we're completing where all of our kindergarten teachers and special education teachers complete the Texas Reading Academies, and this is having to do with Kinder Here. Increase the frequency of progress monitoring, that we work on our culture of collaborative planning, team planning, and we're looking at the priority standards, which are actually the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, but what we've identified, these are priorities for our kids that we feel like we need to work on. The frequent use and analysis of common formative assessment, intervention and enrichment opportunities, and then opportunities for vertical teams to work together to identify needs for our students. So the same, this has to do with first grade, same strategies, and then this has to do with second grade. So I wanted just to give you an update on our progress. We currently have 23 teachers enrolled in the Reading Academy cohort, and 14 sessions have been held out of the 34 hours of content. So after this year with our current staff, we'll have everyone trained that we currently have, K through 3, and then also our special education teachers. We've also implemented a balanced assessment framework that we initially shared with our staff in September, and we've been doing some follow-up work. We followed up with that during Lovejoy, Learning Lovejoy 2.0 in November, and we are planning some additional work with our teachers. So that's a framework where it outlines basically starting with the formative assessment and then moving all the way up to where you would do the STAR testing. We've also implemented a multi-tiered system of support framework. And again, we launched this on November 8th during Learning in Lovejoy. And basically what it does, it outlines steps for teachers and staff to identify achievement levels, to implement intervention, and also enrichment opportunities for all of our students. So we're looking at all students because we're looking at the student growth measure is what we're wanting to focus on. We've trained teachers in several reading areas with a program called Build Bridges, and then we purchased a mirror, which is used in our lower grades to where it's actually teachers can conducts running records on a student so that you can monitor progress on their reading levels as they're moving through in those lower grades. And then of course, our campus problem solving teams, known as the PST teams, are in place, and our principals do an excellent job of facilitating those meetings on a regular basis so that we're monitoring progress of students. And then in addition, we launched an assessment data dashboard. You may have heard about it. It's called Branching Minds. And basically we have these data, we have data, it's just bringing all that data into one location for teacher efficiencies purposes so that we can monitor that so that they can have a timely response to intervene or accelerate. And so we'll be bringing more information about that later. We also are offering a parent information meeting about MTSS and the dashboard Branching Minds next week. And then our ELAR, we talked about vertical teams. The teams have met 3 times already, doing some incredible work. It's exciting to see the work that they're doing. We met last week. And so what they're basically doing, they're monitoring and analyzing student performance data pre-K through 12 in the area of literacy. Any questions about the early childhood literacy goals? And then the math, you're going to see some very similar strategies that we have moving forward with this. I'll lift out some of the what's the differences between literacy and math. If you look at the second bullet, well, the first bullet, again, we have a math vertical team. And then we also were awarded the TEA grant, Strong Foundation Math Framework Grant. And basically what that is, what we're creating out of that is really our belief system on how we instruct in the areas of math. And so it's a pre-K through 12 model. It's not an instructional resource. It's just really our belief system. Teachers have been involved in that and the development, and I'll be coming forward this spring, sharing the framework that we've created from this work with the grant. Very similar, again, the balanced assessment framework, the MTSS framework, PSTs, and then the dashboard. Questions about math? Okay, so our CCMR, this is where a few different strategies where we have, and this was outlined in the original plan, but we have implemented the Texas College Bridge programs in both English and math. We have embedded CCMR strategies in both our ELAR and mathematics documents and resources for our teachers. We've got collaborative data meetings going on regularly with teachers and our college and career counselor, and then systematic targeted instructional structure to meet students' academic needs during leopard time. Some other strategies: College Board mentoring for individual teachers, professional learning workshops for our new AP teachers, and the district-wide vertical team meetings and planning. The other strategy was also implementing the Zello software to track CTE certifications. We've been working on course alignment with our CTE, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, and then certification assessment prep resources we've been looking into. So this is where we are. So Mary Mullins, who's our Director of Secondary Education, and also our coordinator of Social Studies and Student Program, they've been meeting with the LHS staff on a regular basis and looking at how we can increase the number of dual credit and career and technology education courses. We've been working since September, Mary, right, on the course guide. We're excited about some new opportunities that we're going to be able to provide for our students on that. We have the IBC exam scheduled for later this spring. We have a college and career counselor that we're super excited about the work that, I think Sarah may be here today, the work that she has been doing, and she's done a great job about facilitating parent events and meetings with our students. Our counselors just, I think, completed meetings with all of our juniors over the last several months. And then we've had a lot, as I referenced, about the course guide, a significant amount of input from multiple stakeholders in the development of that. And that's going to help us moving forward with master scheduling. We're ahead of the game on that right now. We've also, again, leopard time has helped us target some of these students with these gaps. And then we have been, Bree has been doing some terrific work with our teachers new to AP with some mentoring and coaching with that and support along the way. So,
quick question on that. On the course guide updates, I know it's a lot of work and a lot of things changing. What's the strategy around keeping all of the different stakeholders informed as these changes are rolling out? Because I don't think you're going to just change the whole thing and then launch it all at once. Some things are changing on the fly. How do counselors stay updated on these changes? How are parents that are going through this planning process with their high schoolers? What's the best way to know as things are being changed and what new opportunities are available?
Great question. I'm going to have Mary respond to that because she's been leading this work and been a little bit at a higher level than I have been with it. So Mary, you want to talk to the specifics?
Sure. We know that the counselors are really the boots on the ground. So from the start, all four of them were involved in all of the planning and all of the discussions on anything from looking at graduation requirements to changing endorsement criteria to adding any specifics related to what needs to be done by the time they're seniors in high school. So when we had our first meeting, there were several people around the table, including the counselors, our content coordinators were there, our instructional technology people. So we had one very large meeting to do a broad overview. From there, when you're really looking at things like how we might change programs in CTE, then it's more talking, I'm sorry, it's talking to the teachers because they're the experts in that field. And that's how we did come to add the drone program. It was from talking with that one teacher who's very excited about it and a strong advocate for that. So we pull in teachers. They were in contact for updating any of the descriptions in our course guide and prerequisites and those type of things. So they're involved too. Last week, the counselors held a meeting for parents of rising 8th grade students into 9th grade to provide for them kind of a broad overview of what the expectations are. Before that, there was like an elective maybe fair where the students could visit different tables set up with information about the different electives. I know we have Bump Up Day coming on Monday, the 20th, for students to visit the campus. And when they visit the high school campus, I know the teachers have plans for handing out maybe brochures or flyers or showing, and some students might be demonstrating what's being done in the class. Did I answer your question?
Mostly. So if there are questions about the changes that are being made, first point of contact should be the counselors. And then if there's still confusion or conflicting information, the next point of contact should be you or principal or?
Yeah, the counselors first, and then Dr. Zambezi.
Okay.
And if it's CCM, specifically CCMR, Sarah Thrash, who is the counselor.
Some of the questions I've been getting are just about, well, these were the requirements before, but we think they're changing, but we're not sure. And there's a new course maybe, but it's things that are just changing on the fly, which I think are all positive. But especially when parents had an experience with an older child that's maybe already
Right.
graduated, and now new things are coming in behind it, I think there is some confusion
Right,
out there.
okay, okay. So we can look into possible some more informational meeting for parents. Yeah, great feedback.
So in the past, this is weird, but attendance was part of the grading for college and career ready. Has that been thrown out? The state had a weird requirement. Does anyone remember this? Nobody remembers. Do you remember, Amy? Yes, that. Because I remember Lovejoy, we always kind of got dinged a little bit because our attendance wasn't as good. So I guess, do you know what I'm talking about? Correct. Yes. So is that still something that comes into play with this or no? I'm guessing
From my
not.
understanding, Mary, I don't,
It's part of one of the, it's a distinction that you
yeah,
can earn.
it's a
And it would
distinction.
be in your taper reports, I believe. that
Right.
went out.
So nothing to do with House Bill 3?
I don't think it would impact, not where our rating was in that area,
Okay.
no.
Just
It would have
checking.
been, tied to a
Okay,
distinction.
I always thought it was strange, so I just wanted to
Right.
clarify.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm. I do want to thank Mary for the leadership that she has done with this. It's, like I said, it's not for the faint of heart with some of the work that we've done and ensuring that we're looking at our current students and the impact that it's going to have on them at the high school and then our rising freshmen as well too, because there are going to be some changes with it.
Yeah, thanks as well to the team and to the counselors for the work that they put into improving and growing. And we're grateful for that. I know we have work to do, but thanks for the work being done and being reflected. So. All right, if there,
All right.
we'll move on to item 11. Dr. Tinsley, you're still up with the district improvement plan update.
Okay, this is another mid-year update for you all, and I'm going to ask Anna and Kevin to join you over at the mic over there because some of these goals are specific to their areas of oversight. Just a reminder that part of the Texas Education Code is that we have a a campus and district planning process and teams that support that, looking at our goals and putting in targeted strategies, and we're monitoring those strategies in progress, not just waiting till the end of the year, but throughout the year. Campuses have their own plan, but their plan pretty much mirrors what the district plan lays out, and they are doing the same thing as far as monitoring the progress on that. This is a reminder that the work that's been done, and we are right now, it's highlighted in yellow down there, the progress monitoring, we're kind of at a formative part of the year so that you can see the progress that's been made and areas that we still need to work on. So the district improvement team met in January, just like a couple weeks ago, to look at the progress that had been made and provided some feedback and any adjustments that we needed to make with any of the strategies moving forward. So I broke this down into the 5 goals, and as you will see, these are board goals that have been laid out by you. And in the gray is some of the progress that we've made. In goal 1, you're going to see much of House Bill 3 in this. Again, that's looking at overall growth for our students and lifting out again the balanced assessment framework that's been implemented, the MTSS framework, training for teachers, campus problem-solving teams, and also the areas where our content coordinators are supporting staff in that area as well too. We've also had our some training, some intentional training that we've lifted up, not just for language arts, but for social studies, because that was an area that was not, our students were not performing as high as we thought they could. Because we integrate social studies with language arts in those lower grades, we provided some training for that. And then also some work, the department's been doing some work with our 5th through 12th grade teachers as well too. We've also had our pre-K-12 social studies coordinator and our specially designed instructional coaches attending weekly collaborative planning meetings at Willow with our 8th grade team to support our teachers there. And then we've also had our teachers participating in some virtual learning that the state has been providing in the areas of social studies. Master schedules are looked at and monitored to see if we can, how we're using our time to close some of these gaps, principal staff communication, and then also our teams have done a super job of implementing the professional learning communities framework, the PLCs that we're talking about. Excited about the work that's being accomplished through that. Vertical teams, again, support this goal, and then just the professional development communities that I referenced. Goal 2 aligns with this, is legacy of excellence, and it talks about recognizing the employer of choice for educators and what we're doing to support our staff so that they can fully execute the work that needs to be done so our students can excel. So I'm going to ask Anna to speak to these.
Yes, of course, we are really trying to do anything and everything we can. We're looking at our guest educators, providing support and engagement with them, but also looking, just having opportunities for our teachers. And I know something that was brought up during strategic planning was having teacher voice, having them on committees, so we can work with them. We also looking at district changes so that they do have a voice in that. Something we're looking, of course, right now. We started in the fall looking at evaluation system, T-test evaluation system. Meeting yesterday, we met with Hart on TIA and answering questions and those types of things, but making sure that they definitely have a voice and that we are recognizing that and listening to them and providing support there. They have had some support in master scheduling and making sure we're recognizing them. And we'll do some of those other great things in the spring. We're getting ready to start looking at our Teacher of the Year and some things that had not happened in the past that we're making sure that we're looking at that legacy of excellence with them.
Can you also talk about the work that we're doing with the teacher evaluation instrument?
Yeah, yes.
Elaborate on that.
Yes, so basically what we did, and we know last year, as far as, I know there's been a lot of questions about teacher incentive allotment. Last year, when we started looking at teacher incentive allotment we looked at our evaluation system. So our evaluation system is a locally developed system. It wasn't a state system, so it would not meet the criteria. We did an application last year, and that's where we were told that it wasn't going to meet the criteria that was needed. We also need a student performance. So you have to look, so when we look at TIA in the evaluation system, we look at two things. We look at student performance and we look at teacher growth. So you can add other things in there. We could do culture survey, some different types of things, but for primarily you're looking at teacher growth and you're looking at student performance. Are students getting a year's growth? So we have been having those conversations since last year about that. We formed a committee this past fall and we met with a T-test committee. We met back in November. We met again early January, and we've taken all that information. They're all pretty much on board for T-test. We had on the committee, there were representatives from administration. There's counselors on there, principals on there, teachers at every single campus were represented on that committee, and shared all the information, what that change would look like, because we know evaluation system's personal. It's something that, follows you. And we're now going to the campuses and talking about those changes. Each of them actually had gone back to their campus and shared information with their staff before I came out. Yesterday, we were at Hart and had some great questions. There are some questions that we need answers to. Something that came up with TIA, something that's really important here is we're all Lovejoy. We're Team Lovejoy. The culture here is very much, it's our kids. It's not your kids or your kids. And TIA, not everyone would qualify for teacher incentive allotment. And that's, also, once you do qualify, it is a multiple year process. It's very complex. Mike Morath just made a comment that it's got to be reliable. We have to calibrate. We have to have some specific criteria in place. However, as we were visiting with teachers, some of their questions were, how do you know if you're distinguished? Well, if you meet the criteria, you're distinguished. If you're distinguished, there's 3 different types, but it goes on your certification. So everyone would know if you're distinguished or not. And that was somewhat of a concern because they're of the mindset that we're all one and it's our kids and that we share kids. And so we're still having some of those conversations. We're doing some informal surveying after we present. We have, I think, another one. I think we're at Willow Springs Wednesday afternoon to do those presentations, but we'll finish up by Friday. So, but some good conversation, just sharing the information and the input there. In the spring, usually what happens after we do this, Texas Tech will do another survey with our teachers to see if they're for the TIA process. It's not something you just signed up for. And then, and give us that feedback, share that feedback with us there. And then we would move on to that process. And we may, it may be something that we have to, we've got to get the evaluation system changed first, definitely. And we need some student performance indicators, something that we can use to look at student performances. Because what you're also thinking is, how are we going to determine if an orchestra teacher gets it? There's no STAR testing there, there's no MAP testing there. So those are some things that you have to think through. Are we going to do SLOs? Are we going to do portfolios? So it's not just a, it could be a pre and post test, but all those things have to be developed. Questions about that? It's complex. And so we've been studying it for a couple of years.
I also want to lift out, we have, if you'll look at bullet 4, it talks about our MOU with Texas A&M. And we have 5 teacher residents that started in January.
That is correct. And those are the ones that y'all approved the MOU for. So we pay them $20,000 a year. They started in January. Of course, that's through a grant. They will finish in December, and then hopefully we can onboard them and hire them. We're also starting another group in August, so we're campaigning hard to get those because it's definitely a recruiting practice that we're trying to do. So in August, we're going to try to recruit some more so we can still use that specific funding to for the fall. And then, of course, in the spring, we would pay them from our own budget. But yes, that goes through December 2023, funding on those. Any others, Lori, that you would like for me to point out?
You talked about the T-test
Yeah.
advisory. And then just, I think I would also want to lift up professional development feedback systems. So as we've been working with staff, we have put in some opportunities for them to give us input and feedback regarding professional development and where their needs are. Okay. Right. Okay, I'm going to head to goal 3, and this has to do with continuous improvement and financial sustainability. Just going to lift out some things that you're aware of there, the continuation of the Lovejoy Scholar Program. Part of one of our strategies was to hold a VATRE election, which was held in November. Also, we're doing a study of the financial impact of fees, student fees, and then also looking at our transportation fees, looking at our staffing guidelines, which impacts our finances here in the district. We have the staff stakeholder master scheduling committee that is currently working now to look at scheduling models. We've just completed, we're excited about an instructional materials inventory. We feel like we have a really good idea of where our gaps are and working on plans on how we're going to fund that to ensure that all of our teachers have primary resources in all courses and grade levels and content areas. And then John Corbin been hired as our new technology director, has been busy the last month working on the inventory to where we have a better idea where we are with not just student devices, but also our teacher devices as well too. And then also looking at our networking infrastructure and the impact on cost on that and security.
And we have, of course, with our Lovejoy Scholars, we've had, I think 115 have returned as renewals at the $4,000 rate, and we have about 18 at the $9,000, including renewals and those that are interested in coming for the fall. So we're actively collecting those. Those are all due March 1st for those that are not a renewal.
And then go 4 has to do with parent and community partnerships. And Anna, I'm going to lean on you on this one too.
Yes, we're pretty excited. We did, of course, did the volunteer portal. We're up and getting that done, working with Carrie Sharp on that and some of our parents. Also, we have launched, and I looked, an alumni or former student. We've basically have created a form so we can highlight our former students as it is in our goal, and trying to have them come back and share their experiences there. And then with the portal, of course, we're looking for community members, volunteers. We hope you will sign up. And so you can get into our classrooms there and help support our teachers and our kiddos, providing all that good expertise that you have.
And then also opportunities for stakeholder input and involvement. There's some examples there. That's just a sprinkling of what we're doing, but ensuring that we have voices around the table as we're making decisions and moving forward. So, and also building that trust and partnerships. And then our last goal is on safety and security.
Yeah, we, as you guys know, our board, Ms. Cordell, has been extremely supportive in being really on the more time I spend in safety and security and working with the marshals, I really understand and realize how we're on the front end of the curve on safety and security in schools. As you guys know, the governor just came out with a safety grant that there are some primary costs that you have to meet. And those primary costs are in there because a lot of schools don't have those things in place. Most of, if not all of those, were in place in Lovejoy because we were really, like I said, ahead of the curve on a lot of those really minimum standards that he asked to be funded with this grant. With that being said, we can always get better, and we can't let that pass us by. We still have to continue to be on the front end of that curve. One of the things that we have to do is always look at whatever the last event was, how effective were we with that event, how efficient were we with that event, and one of the ways that we do that is an after-action review. So anytime that we have an event, we get around with any of the stakeholders that were in that or the players who were in that event, and we talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and what do we need to do differently next time. And I think Ms. Cordell would agree that every time we get better at that. We're not perfect, but we're always better with our communication internally. We're always better with our communication with our community. And we're always better with how we respond and work with our first responders in our community to make sure that we provide the best and safest environment to our kids and our staff. And so it's really nice to see how we have kind of moved the needle on that. Another one that I'm really proud of, and this was really headed up by Stephanie Kranz. She really leads this district threat assessment team. Anytime that we have a concern with our student, a staff member, that we feel we need to address, either on the counseling side of things, on the law enforcement side of things, we have a district threat assessment team, which I shared with you at the last meeting, that we really talk through these, make sure that we are providing not just a response if there are consequences needed, but support for those who are struggling, whether it be with, mental health, whether it be with anything. It doesn't matter what it is. We want to provide, again, the consequence is secondary. The support to make sure that that person gets the support they need to have a better outcome is really the goal that we're shooting for. And so the district threat assessment team is extremely important. And then the drills that our campuses are doing each and every day or each and every month, that they're meaningful. They're not just checking them off the list. And then they include our first responders, our community fire departments, law enforcement departments, who are there to give us feedback because they see things that we don't see. They spend every day in that world, and they can give us really valuable feedback. So I wanted to really, on the safety and security goal number 5, thank the board because you guys have really put us in a position to where we're able to respond and we're able to support our kids and staff. But again, we can always be better. We could throw an infinite amount of money at this, but it doesn't necessarily fit into what our plan is. If we're not doing what we already have in place really, really well, it doesn't matter what we add on to it because we're just adding on something else that we're not going to do very well. So let's get really good at what we're doing, and then we can talk about what other layers we want to add on.
So that's just a kind of a summary of where we are at this point in the year. We're really, when we were reviewing this in preparation for the last DIT meeting, we've accomplished quite a bit. And I say we, and this is a whole team effort. Campuses, district teachers, staff have played a major role in this. So excited about the progress that's been made. So we'll be coming forward later when we have some quantitative data with our STAR results and how our students are performing in some of those areas to give you an update on whether we met the goals or not. So any questions? Okay. Thank you.
All right, item 12 would be Rodriga, TASB Localized Policy Manual Update 120.
Good morning. Used to saying good evening. Okay, so we have a policy update for y'all that we'll bring forward for your consideration at the February 27th board meeting. So we'll jump right in and begin with legal versus local policy. So legal policy should only reflect the context of the school district as a whole, and it should only inform the local decision-making, which is why you vote on it. And it should not be adopted, whereas local policy should. So details regarding update 120, we have 4 for your consideration for the February 27th meeting. Most of those are security related. They can be found in your agenda packet and also for public view. So these are the 4 that will be forward for your consideration at the February 27th meeting. We have CB local, CKC local, FNG local, and FO local. Any questions regarding that? I'll direct them to a cabinet member. Good. Okay, thank you.
Item 13, Mr. Parker, College and Career Counselor.
I'm going to ask Ms. Thrash to come up here. Previously, we had talked a little bit about college, career, military readiness, and we have when you talk to people and you get excited because of the passion they have for something, that's kind of like talking to Ms. Thrash about college, career, military readiness. We're really fortunate to have her in our district as a resource because there's a lot of people who are utilizing her knowledge and her skills throughout Region 10 and across the state because of her her knowledge about getting kids ready for their post-graduation choices. But not just that, what are the first steps to take when they transition from 8th grade into 9th grade, and then even prior to. So I asked Ms. Thrash to come and just share with you a little bit about what she, kind of her approach and what information she provides to our community along with other communities about CCMR.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And as Mr. Parker said, I am incredibly passionate about this. I want to be a resource for all, however I can help. I put together this website just so that when students are at home working, they have somewhere to refer to. It started with the high school grade levels, but as that grew and middle school parents were coming to me, I wanted to have a resource for them as well. And I've added some additional elementary stuff. So I'm just going to kind of go through some things that are available. Please, please, please take advantage of me on any grade level. I'm here to help serve this community, and I truly do love doing it. So as I said, I've got some things for kinder through senior, but specifically it works more towards the high school grade levels. If you are on my website, these are just some of the different things that are available. And then within each of these, there are subcategories to help support the students as they're working towards the application process or whatever it is that they are moving to. So this month is CTE month. So this is really where I brought in the elementary students. I wanted them to have some resources available to them, but then I just also thought this was fun stuff. It's coloring books, but it's more so jobs outside of kind of those five, you know, the teacher, the police officer, fireman, nurse. So I found these resources that I just thought would be fun and hope that teachers have been able to take advantage of for our younger students. For middle school, so I literally just put a bunch of resources together. There are a lot of middle school students that are trying to develop their plan as they move towards high school and ultimately to the application process. So these are just kind of some things. I tried to make it specific to their age level, so it was geared for things that they would understand. And then for our 8th graders, I put our just different pathways that they can take, career interest profilers, that type of stuff, so that as they're starting to meet with their counselors to choose their classes for high school, they have an idea of what those are. Someone along here said that we did meet with our middle school students last week, and presented to the students and parents. And so I'm so excited because I've already had parents from the middle school reach out to me, say, can we please set up a meeting? I had one yesterday, I have one today. So I'm grateful that they're utilizing the resources that we have and taking advantage of me as well. So these are some just different things that are available for middle school. I'm not gonna read them again. Different things. I've tried to create an events list. There's a huge summer camp list. So if you have a student that's wanting to go off to some of the more elite colleges, there are a ton of camps that are available to them as well. And then as we, like I said, get more towards that application process, the resources kind of grow, just because I want them to have somewhere to go when they're thinking about this at home, what they can be doing, how they can start preparing for that. So I've created a checklist for all high school grade levels that kind of walk them through the things that they can be doing to prepare and ultimately set them up for success as they start that application process. So as far as the senior class goes, I've got the examples of the Common App essay prompts on there, the Apply Texas. The scholarship list is huge. Parents, please know there are scholarships as early as elementary school on that scholarship list. So if you have a student, take advantage of it now. It's never too early to start planning and saving up money for those things. And then this is kind of the golden ticket. I learned about this common data set not too long ago, and there's so many people that don't know about it. And I truly think it is like you win by looking at this. So just like our Texas high schools are evaluated by the state of Texas, we have to report certain information to them. Colleges as well have to do that. And it wasn't meant to inform our decisions as applicants, things that we can be doing as we are applying to schools. But when you go on this common data set, specifically section C7, it's very clear about what the colleges are looking for in an application and a student. So if you have a freshman, sophomore, and they are dead set on going to A&M, you can go and pull these common data sets up and see what it is that they're looking for in the applicant. So maybe you have a student that's really not involved in extracurricular activities, but you see that that is something that's super important to the schools. You know that you need to get involved so that you can represent those things on there. So if you're in that process and you are looking at those schools, I highly encourage you, pull these common data sets. You literally just Google it, common data set, scroll down to section C7, and it's there. So this is a hidden gem that everybody needs to know about. And this is just another one for U of Arkansas. As I said, I truly am passionate about this. I love doing it. However I can support you, I love seeing the House Bill 3 stuff. If I can be any part of that to provide resources or help that in any way, please let me know. And I appreciate y'all having me. I hope I was in my 5 to 7 minute. I was trying to be quick. So.
If I know this community, there's some kindergarten parents who are filling out applications right now. They're searching for scholarship applications right now.
It's never too early to start prepping.
Well, we're grateful to have you. Thank you for the work you're doing, the passion, and the organization. It's very appreciated.
Yeah, and like I've
Her
seen
social
people I
media
know,
is-
her social media is so huge because everyone follows her. Because I started following you and then they started following you, I mean, like friend to friend, it's great.
Well, I'm in a predicament now because a Facebook page, you can only have 5,000 followers. And once you hit that, no one else can follow. So I had to create a page because it can have unlimited. So now I'm trying to move all those people over there. So if you haven't followed the new Facebook, please follow it.
What a good problem.
Yes, it was a bad problem. Thank y'all.
All right. Item 14, thank you for that, very appreciative. Item 14, bond project and capital needs update. Ms. Cabrera.
Good morning, President Owen, esteemed board members, and Superintendent Cordell. I'm here to present a quick update on our bond projects and capital needs. This ties in very neatly into our pathway to budget development for the 23-24 school year. And as part of our zero-based budgeting, we've already identified some significant capital needs that are eligible to be funded out of bond proceeds. And so first I want to talk about the Series 2021. We received $5 million in bond proceeds, and here has the start of what we've done so far. So for athletic projects, that particular category, for the 21-22 fiscal year, we either started or completed the following projects. The high school turf. Now, I do want to say that this is a carryover from Series 2019. I don't want you to think that it only cost $942,000 to do turf improvements. The scoreboard, the baseball and softball, we have athletic facility signage and branding. We have cameras and Willow Springs field lighting retrofit that was either started or completed in 21-22, carrying over to this school year. And then for 22-23, started or completed, we have the softball dugout padding. Those funds have been encumbered. So total athletic projects out of this $5 million sale is about $1.5 million. And to remind you, the total 2014 authorization was $75,750,000. And for athletic projects, so far spent or committed to date was a little over $9 million. This button. Okay, so here's just a couple little pictures that we have that I found for you. It's not everything, but this is the one of the turf improvements at the high school. We have our practice fields. We have the softball, and also throughout these slides, you can see some of the signage. We have the baseball turf and scoreboard here. And then I'm going to move on now to the safety and security projects. So for 22-23 projects, either started or completed, we have some administrative and the Child Development Center lockdown exit alarms. We also have at the Child Development Center secure vestibule, Transportation driveway was repaired, a new sidewalk at the high school in the athletic area. And then we have cell phone routers, repeaters at various locations, and these funds have just been encumbered. So the total safety and security projects committed to date is $288,703. This is some pictures of the exit alarm devices, as well as the door lockdown at the very bottom, and the Child Development Center secure vestibule. For building updates and maintenance projects, for 21-22 started or completed, we have the Child Development Center playground. And then in the 22-23 fiscal year, we have the fencing for the Child Development Center. We also have some gym floors that were redone at Sloan Creek, including some wrestling mats. I understand that was some damage. Willow Springs and the power factor correction at Puster and the high school, band parking lot painting lines and dots. And then also at Puster, we have some funds encumbered for their playground equipment. It's my understanding it's supposed to be installed over spring break. There was a little bit of a delay for supply problems, shortages. So total building updates and maintenance, about $435,000. And some pictures for you, the playground at the Child Development Center. Some of the floors at the gyms, and then this exciting picture of the power factor correction. This is a before picture of the band parking lot, and here's with all the students in our field, restriped and dots. Technology projects, these funds have been encumbered for Chromebooks for $74,500. And that is the end of the bond funds that we have committed out of this $5 million. So the original issue, again, $5 million. We've spent or encumbered $2.3 million. We've earned interest on the idle proceeds of about $64,000 through the end of January. And so we have almost $2.76 million left to spend. And now talking about some of the capital needs that we've identified that can possibly be addressed with this remaining. Potential use of the remaining $2.76 million. Again, this is the 2021 bond funds that we currently have in the bank. So as Lori mentioned, they've completed an inventory of the first two items, instructional materials and also technology, infrastructure, software, and equipment. And then we've got an inventory and needs submitted for maintenance equipment and custodial equipment. And then also you can use bond funds to do a formal needs assessment. And we're particularly concerned about building life cycle updates, especially the costly items, which is the HVAC and the roofs. I understand they're all about 15 years old. And of course, the HVAC, the technology has changed so much in the last 15 years. We're definitely not very energy efficient as we could be. And I just wanted to point out and remind you, I know we have an aging white fleet. But for whatever particular reason, we are not allowed to use bond proceeds for white fleet. The only exception is we can use them to acquire school buses. This is the custodial current status and priority order. This is a critical need, has been identified as a critical need that's been brought to my attention as well as the cabinets. And so we asked Rigo, he did a wonderful job putting together the items that we need, what we currently have, whether or not we can repair them. They have been spending a lot of money. Most of their repair budget is gone in trying to fix these things. And then we've also asked him to prioritize them. If we were going to fund everything out of bond proceeds now, it would be about $212,000, and the priority needs split down between what he thinks that we really need now versus what we might be able to delay for 6 to 12 months. And then on the maintenance needs, several lawnmowers. Don't have the information on the life cycle, so we will get that when Alex returns. He's on a little vacation. But those items that he's asking for to add to his current count. Now, on the ones that he currently has, he did say that he'd like to, keep them because they're good to use for replacement parts, even though when they get to the point where they're not repairable, that he'd be able to, potentially use one set to fix the other set to fix the other. But in the meantime, he still would like to add one each of these categories of lawnmowers. So now let's talk about the plans for the remaining authorization. So this is $9.5 million. It's a future sale. It takes about 2 months or so of planning to actually, go ahead and get the board to, approve the sale and for us to get the proceeds. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention early on. So the original plan, I was able to find the original plan back from 2014 of what this final sale would be. And of course, you can see at that time, additional classroom space and growth was thought to be the status of about $2 million, $2.1 million for these particular campuses. Probably not something that we'll be doing. And then the building updates and maintenance, there were some campuses that were identified that might need some tender loving care for about $5 million. Not sure that that's necessarily the case or if these items haven't already been addressed. And then of course, a good portion of this remaining 9.5 was designed for technology, whether it was infrastructure or refreshment of devices, I'm not sure, but that was about $2.4 million. And again, that was the old plan. So, what are our next steps? And really, your lovely superintendent has been working with PBK. I was in one of those meetings for the building needs assessment, and really to be able to identify our priority items and how best to use that remaining money. The 2.7 as well as the 9.5 is a formal facilities assessment would need to be done addressing all of these particular areas and asking our architects who are experienced in doing this type of work to begin this as soon as the board so desires. And then of course, long range facility planning and building in life cycles. Estimated cost for them to do this study would be about $53,000. And if you have any questions and more specific, our next steps with engaging the architects, I'll let the superintendent address those.
Yes, we're just sharing with you the scope of the project and the estimated amount, and we can bring you a more specific proposal for your consideration. Possibly within the next month. We think this is critically important, as Ms. Cabrera shared, in regarding an understanding of our current state. It will also be an important data set for our capital improvement committee of stakeholders, parents, staff members to have and be able to review as part of their work.
Yeah, I don't know when you've last had like a roof assessment, but that, to me is pretty critical so that you understand the needs of what it would cost, because those things are usually start at the $1 million price range and go on up. Any questions? And of course, all of this leads up to the data and the information that would be meaningful for the capital planning committee to have before they start, is for somebody to, do a formal assessment and cost analysis of where we're at in 2023.
Thank you for the work. We've been anticipating it and expected some surprises along the way as well. So thank you.
You're most welcome.
Is the expectation for some of these critical priority items to be brought to us for consideration at the next meeting? Is that?
In the next several meetings, yes, you will be getting more information. You got some information today that pertain to custodial and grounds. And Dr. Tinsley and her team are working very closely on the instructional materials and then the technology that was mentioned as well. And so they'll have much more specific information for you moving forward.
Yeah, I can add though at the moment, and I failed to mention that when we were on the slide of the remaining 2.7 million in the current sale that we have on hand, is easily we could spend about half of that on everything we just discussed.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 15. Ms. Cabrera, the preliminary comptroller's property value study.
She did that wonderfully. That would have taken me a long time to get here. So thank you so much, Rodrika. Okay, so the preliminary comptroller's property value study, I'll refer to it as the PVS, comes out every year for all school districts in the end of January. And of course, that means that our district has received it. And because of some of the implications of the findings, I wanted to share this with you today and then talk about our next steps. So along with 10 other area school districts in Collin County, our 23 property value study, which is based on the 2022 appraisal and the 2022 taxes, which impacts our 22-23 current budget. So I think we've mentioned this before. You adopt a budget not knowing what the state values are going to be until the end of January. We were all found, these 10 districts and ourselves, to have our local value ruled by the comptroller's office during their study as being invalid, but local value was still certified because the district's entitled to a 1-year grace period. So all 11 of us are in this 1-year grace period. An invalid status means that the Collin Central Appraisal District reported their reported values that they sent into the comptroller back in November was outside the allowable interval level, which is plus or minus 5%. So the comptroller says that you can be off 5% plus, 5% minus from what they determined the value to be. And where we failed was in the category of single family. They found our values that the appraisal district submitted on our behalf to be only at 90.81%. Obviously, that's a lot lower than 95%, which would be the delta that you're allowed. Now, I do want to tell you that this is pretty significant because 94% of your property value is in single family category prior to any of the exemptions. If this was to happen again next year, then we would be out of grace 2 years in a row, and then we would be assigned state funding. And at that time, for fiscal year 24, we would be negatively impacted. And I'll show you that, some numbers, some scary numbers in a minute. So at the moment, we are planning to have the appraisal district protest these findings on our behalf, just so that we can be removed from being invalid and be removed from grace. So in case it happens again next year, we'd be allowed to be in grace and get local value, because there's a big difference when you determine your state funding and your recapture. You want to get the lower value in your numbers. The less wealthy, the more state funding you get, the less recapture you paid. So that's the goal. So here, just in case you were curious, here's the other Collin County ISDs with invalid findings. It's the rapid growth in the area, the increased appraised values, trying to keep up with everything. But I will tell you that the state just does a very small sample. So the appraisal district will be hard at work trying to give them a lot more samples of houses that were sold, whether it be new construction or resales, to validate the value of our single family homes. That's the hope and the intention going forward. I will note that the defense of districts that were found to be in grace in the past, only one appeal was lost, and that was back in 2020, and that was for Farmersville. So they do have a good track record. So I'm pretty hopeful. And I will tell you that 149 school districts throughout the state of Texas actually failed their property value study, this being the second year in the row, and they've been assigned state value. So we definitely pay attention to this every January. The final appeal and the notice of whether we will be out of grace will not be until the end of July, beginning of August. It takes them that long to do all these appeals. That's why they call it preliminary, because you can appeal it if you don't like it. But again, let me remind you, we have been assigned local value. So the impact of the controller's property value study, the T2 is what it's called. I don't know why they came up with that number, but that's what we use. When we get the study, we eyeball that number immediately. So the value that was used in the adopted budget, again, was a guesstimate based on historical growth and what was going on in the county at the time. So we were looking at a 14.5% increase, potentially over the final number from the prior year, or approximately $3.5 billion. And so at that time, when you adopted the budget, you were going to have $1.1 million come into the district from the state under the Foundation School Program for revenue, and you were going to pay out to the state recapture about $1 million. The net to the impact to the budget or fund balance, as you might want to look at it, was about a positive 100,000. Because of the failed VATRE, rerunning the numbers with the lower property tax amount, the budget amendment that was presented to the board that you approved back in November. The FSP revenue, there was no impact on that. That did not change, but the recapture went from 1 million to 1.41 million. And basically, net being from the original budget, we saw a shift of about $410,000. This does not include the impact of the lost revenue for tax collections, because I'm only talking about the controller's property value. That was another part of your budget amendment at that time. So the value assigned by the controller, the T2 local value, because we're in 1 year grace, this is what the new number is that we need to rerun all of our funding templates for. And then it will also then tie into 23-24 as our new starting number and its impact, which Thomas is working on for our budget workshop number 4 on the 27th. So the T2 value was a little bit higher than we thought. It was just under 3.6 billion, or a 15.2% increase over the prior year. So that means that our foundation school program revenue will be 940,000, assuming our ADA attendance that's in our model stays constant for the rest of the year. Recapture, unfortunately, will increase from that 1.4 million to 2.2 million. So we'll see a net $950,000 decrease because of the way the system works. So that will be a future budget amendment for us to shore that up. But the what if down there that I did want to call to your attention, it does not impact us this year. It could next year if we don't do this appeal and win. The state value, they came up with $3.8 billion, or a 24% increase in our value over the prior controller's value last year. What that would have done was decrease our foundation school program to 658,000, increase our recapture, believe it or not, to $2.5 million, or a net impact to the current amended budget would have been another loss of about $1.5 million, which basically would just come out of your fund balance. So that's the situation, and the next steps you will see on the 27th, a formal resolution for the board to appoint the Collins Central Appraisal District as the district's agent to act on our behalf to file the appeal.
Do we have history having to appeal the comptroller's values here in our district, to your knowledge?
No, but we can certainly find out by asking the appraisal district.
So in your experience, is the appraisal district typically the best advocate for these positions since they derive those specific values that are being contested?
That is correct. That is 100% correct, because it is their data. Anybody else that would come into the district to do that for the district would have to garner all that data from the appraisal district anyhow. And it's public information, so they do have to share it. But it's very common for appraisal districts to do this initial appeal.
Could you remind me of the timeline that you said when we might know back, and how does that intersect with our budget development?
They have, well, of course, there's no impact this year because we're in the grace. So I just, we can breathe a sigh of relief, but we just don't want to, ignore it because 2 years in a row, like I said, 149 districts could not get out of that grace period. But as far as going forward, we will use the local value assigned to us for T2. It's a little bit higher growth. So in talking with, Thomas, we may want to make some adjustments on our property wealth going forward, because I think the appraisal district, they've been put on notice, 11 districts in the county, and that they probably, when they're looking at the January 1st of 2023 values and working those numbers before they come up to the July certified, that my gut feeling is they're maybe a little bit more aggressive. So our growth may be a little bit more. I know in our model, we have 7%. So the timeline for us to find out if we're out of grace won't be until the end of July, beginning of August, but in no way will it impede or change anything going forward with the 23-24 budget, with the exception of maybe we should back off of that 7% growth from T2 value to T2 value, and maybe look at it being that the district would be a little bit, wealthier. And that's just one of the many moving parts in trying to determine what our state funding will be, particularly in a legislative session year. Did that answer your question? Mm-hmm. Appeal, no impact. Nope. Yeah, Thomas is out at Hasbell this week, doing lots of great educational sessions. So he may have a budget amendment for the 27th, but if he doesn't get to it, definitely in March. There's some other things that we need to shore up. So at that time, we'll adjust, the revenue and obviously look at a revised fund balance going forward to start the new school year based on these results.
Am I looking at this correctly, that at some point in the future, we could get into a situation where we would need to cut that amount of programming to stay with the same fund balance?
Well, whether it be programming or something else, yes, that's a correct statement. That doesn't put us in a favorable, position as we had hoped. Because again, I will reiterate, when districts become wealthier and their tax values go up, and your local citizens bear the burden of that, because 90% of your value is in rooftops, or I call it sometimes a bedroom, community, that currently under the current school funding system, we lose funding because the state will reduce the foundation school program revenue they give us, as well as increase our recapture. That's just current law. Now, of course, we've mentioned as part of the legislative update, some of the good news in the guaranteed yield for our tier 2 pennies, and that's where we get our money, that those have been determined by the state to need to be raised, to be constitutional, and then that would garner the district, some significant increases, as well as we have another bill that's been filed, another House bill, for the basic allotment, that one at $6,500. The previous one filed, the Senate and the House, another representative from the House is at the $70-75. So that would potentially, help the district too. So hopefully we won't have to get to that, because we'll be able to make up the difference with some additional, funding. Again, timing wise, the session doesn't end till May. And we're lucky if we find out the day before they close.
Thank you. There's a lot of complexity to this discussion, so I appreciate you taking the time to share with the board and update us. All right, item 16 will be our staff stakeholder master scheduling committee update.
Are we doing Pat? Go ahead. Oh, no. Oh, no, I'm out of order.
You can go out of order if you'd
No,
like, since you're already up there. You want to go with 17?
I'm the one that's out of order. It's my error, not yours or Dr. Tinsley.
It's a little different when you have a morning meeting, right? So, okay. I'm going to ask Dr. Zambezi, Mrs. Haynes, and Ms. Koenig and Mr. Parker, they're going to join me in this presentation on the work of the Staff Stakeholder Master Scheduling Committee, to give you an update on the work that we've done and some findings that we have thus far. One of the things I do want to just this statement here about school schedules should meet student needs and ensure that teachers are primed to deliver engaging, rigorous content. So when we're looking at master scheduling, it's looking at how we're serving students throughout the school day, but also what are we doing to also ensure that teachers have some concentrated time in order for planning and preparation to deliver the content. Just a reminder what our why is. It's these three areas: respond to revenue challenges, the teacher, staff retention, recruitment, and support, and then at the same time maintaining that legacy of excellence that we have here for our LSD students. Just want to revisit our how. We established a staff stakeholder committee to look at the 5 master scheduling models, shared a timeline, and then systems for feedback. So we have representation from all campuses, all departments, and so this is just a reminder of who's currently serving on the committee. And the committee's work, when we looked at the 5 models, we were looking at the 7-day period, 8-day period, and block schedule, which all impact Willow Springs and Lovejoy High School. And then we also looked at the 4-day student instructional week model, and then also additional staff planning days. And we measured those in the 3 areas. Just to kind of recap the committee's work, we've been reviewing research, impact of master scheduling models. There's some of those models that have more research than others just because of the acceleration of the change and how quickly things are moving. We did some information gathering through research. We're coming together. We've met a couple of days together, and we brought together some of the research for the committee to read and to provide some feedback and input on. We did a survey to get an initial pulse from the community and from parents and from staff on the scheduling models, really to gain some insight for the committee on what we needed to do as far as next steps and further study. And then we've been looking at districts implementing the various scheduling models. So we're in the process right now of analyzing that information gathered and report findings to the Board of Trustees, which we are today. So just want to explain the survey. I know there's been some questions out there of why the survey was developed like it was, and but to give some background on this, so we issued the survey February 1st and closed it on the 8th for our staff. There's a separate survey for staff, separate survey for parents. There were a lot of similarities in both. Each of the surveys contained 20 to 24 what we call Likert scale questions. And they're closed questions. They're actually a statement that we put out there that, it's to get the initial beliefs and opinions. It's not a vote. It's just really a gathering of opinions and beliefs about the various scheduling models. And then we also included in the survey an option for comments as well. So the committee felt that this was a good path to get an initial pulse of the staff and parents on the 5 scheduling models. And there was questions, why did we not give specifics on the dates or the times and what that would actually look like? When you look at the big picture, there are multiple iterations that we could do for each scheduling model. So that's why at that time, that initial survey did not include that information. It doesn't mean that it might be coming forward, but at that time, it was just basically to get preliminary beliefs and opinions about those models. And again, the purpose was to guide the committee's future planning and further study. Lifting out some themes from each of the surveys. When I say themes, we look at comments, we look at kind of the overarching percentages that we got from the questions. So some themes under each of the 5 models from staff for the 7-period day. Themes were they felt that staff felt like if you went to a 7-period day, it would limit student opportunities. They felt like it was a neutral impact on legacy and excellence, basically across the board. The staff felt like that if you do a model well, it's not going to negatively impact student achievement. That model we got, it would have a negative impact on teacher and staff recruitment. And the purpose for that is because it would cut some planning time for our secondary staff. 8-period, positive impact on legacy of excellence, because we're living that right now, and they can see the benefits that we reap from that. They felt like it would have, again, a neutral impact on students' performance, but it would have a positive impact on teacher and staff recruitment and retention. And again, I think part of that is because they have extended planning periods in preparation. Block scheduling, it was kind of, I think more so from staff, it was maybe some staff who had engaged in it before that we got some stronger opinions on. I think some of that was that it allowed for more concentrated time, and you'll see some of that as we move on, and about for labs and some assessments and things like that. And I'll go into more detail on that. But basically, positive impact on legacy of excellence and neutral impact on legacy of excellence. 4-day instructional student week, that was overwhelmingly a positive impact on teacher staff recruitment and retention from the staff's perspective. Positive impact on legacy of excellence, neutral impact on legacy of excellence, beneficial for work-life balance for our staff. And then there were some questions there, I think, because we didn't give details, how would this impact our hourly employees? Because that would be one less day. So again, that was some of the feedback that we received. Additional planning days, overarchingly, it was positive impact on recruitment and retention of staff. And definitely, if teachers have more time to plan, that would have a positive impact on student performance. From parents' themes, 7-day period, again, that kind of mirrored what the staff thought, is that it would limit the student opportunities that we are currently offering our students. For the most part, parents felt like that would have a negative impact on our legacy of excellence here in Lovejoy, and some felt like it was a neutral impact. 8-period, positive impact on students and neutral impact on students. And then on block scheduling, it was kind of split, half and half with that. So, and then 4-day instructional student week, what was brought forth, some themes from parents. Positive impact on teacher staff recruitment, neutral impact on teacher staff recruitment, childcare concerns, hardship on working families were some themes that surfaced. Extended school day concerns, meaning the number of minutes within a school day, particularly for our elementary students. Negative impact on legacy of excellence, positive impact on legacy of excellence, that kind of outweighed both of them there. And then there were some themes that surfaced about, felt like it would be beneficial for families and some life balance for families. Additional planning days, overwhelmingly thought it would be good for teachers and staff recruitment, but again, childcare concerns surfaced with those as well too. So I'm going to give you an overview. I've got multiple slides here. I'm not going to go into detail on that unless you have some questions. And I brought these 4 individuals up because I think we can go into a little bit more detail on some of these areas too. But just to give you an idea of the breakdown of the staff participation, and we put percentages here, but I can give you specific numbers. So at the Child Development Center, we had 11 staff members respond. 39 at Puster, 36 staff members at Hart, 42 staff members responded from Sloan, 36 from Willow Springs responded. Lovejoy High School, we had 94 responses. noting that they, transportation operations and maintenance, 6 staff members, and then administration building, we had 32. So that's how we got those percentages. So overall, we had 297 submissions. We had some duplicates on a couple on these surveys. Because we kind of had some problems when we first put the surveys out there, we limited it to 1 submission per IP address, but we were having staff members and parents that were having trouble accessing it. I think some of that was how maybe your phone or your computer's coded on and blocking some IP addresses. So we opened it up. So we knew we were going to probably have some multiple submissions. So we had 5 that we identified in that staff survey. So we pulled those out if we had duplicates. Then for our parents' participation, we had 1,191. We did identify 76 duplicates, so we removed those just to make sure the data was not skewed. So anyway, we had Lovejoy Child Development Center, 37 parents responded, 3.1%. Custer Elementary, 23.1% of the overall, and that was 275 parents responses. Hard had 273 responses at 22.9%. Sloan Creek had 376 responses at 31.6%. Willow, 398 parents responded, and Lovejoy High School, 582. So the way that I'm going to present this next is I'm going to take each of the scheduling models. I'm going to lay it out to where the findings that the committee had through the work that was done, and then the actual breakdown of percentages. So for the 7-period day, possible benefits that the committee lifted out, this was the model that would be the most cost savings. An estimate of about a savings of about $500,000, and that's estimating a decrease of 7 to 10 FTEs. Combined for both of those campuses. Also, it may be beneficial because you may have slightly longer class periods for instructional purposes. Challenges that the committee felt for the Lovejoy community is that we would offer fewer electives, fine arts and athletic classes. It would be loss of one of the 2 daily staff planning periods that we currently have. It could impact student morale with less electives and less learning opportunities, which impacts teaching and learning. And then, and then potential for more athletes in athletic periods. So the classes would grow because we'd have to combine some of those groups. And when you look at the staff survey on that, pretty much the 7-period day negatively impacting, it was kind of across the board. Similar 7-period schedule is the best option. Our staff pretty much, when you look at it, disagreed with that. It would improve secondary staff retention. Again, that came out in the themes. Staff did not feel like it would improve staff retention. And then the same thing that has to do with motivating me to remain in the district. So these were statements that we had in the staff survey. Impacting student achievement, the percentages there you'll see, and then positive impact on maintaining legacy of excellence. I think it was more staff that disagreed on that, and neutral as well, neutral impact. Again, I think what it is, when we look at any of these models, it's the quality of how you implement. And as a committee, did not feel like that any of the models, if it was implemented well, would negatively impact the legacy of excellence. So that was parent surveys there. And the 7-period day would improve secondary staff, teacher retention, recruitment, and support. And I think from parents, what you saw, this was probably the one of the models that parents felt very strongly about in some areas, because it is taking away that additional option, of electives and exploration for our students. So. The committee's finding on the 8-period day, the benefits, it wouldn't be any increase in cost, allows for the 2 planning periods. It's consistency for our students and our staff, no changes. Varsity, JV, and freshmen would have separate athletic class periods. It maintains those opportunities for students to explore multiple areas of study, and then feel like it's a recruitment for Lovejoy scholars. That's some input that we received with some of our inquiries for people wanting to come here. Possible challenges, again, it would not really help from a financial revenue challenge. There are shorter periods, so that requires before and after school practices, and they are shorter periods. So from a teacher's perspective, the in-depth learning can be challenging sometimes. There are multiple transitions throughout the day for our kiddos, a lot of movement going on, and then there are higher student caseloads for our staff. So from our staff perspective, our staff pretty much felt like it was not a high percentage disagree that it was not a good option for our students. Retention, kind of neutral impact there, but more so agreed that it would be good for retention versus those that disagreed. And that was an area, the same thing basically about remaining in the district. From parents, pretty strongly that they felt like this was a good model that we have here, providing secondary students opportunity to pursue multiple interests and maintaining that legacy of excellence. And parents also more so agreed than disagreed that it was the best option for secondary staff teacher recruitment and retention. The block scheduling, the benefits would be that we have longer class periods. And again, as I alluded to earlier, that probably was why a theme surfaced, especially those staff members who have worked in it with a block schedule before. It assists with tests, labs, relationship building was brought forth. That felt like more time with kids, they get to know the kids better, and can help support and build those partnerships with kids. Differentiated learning opportunities as well too. It would decrease before and after school practices for our curricular. You have extended teacher planning periods, more opportunities for depth and complexity for our students with instruction, different opportunities to increase differentiated learning just because of the longer class periods, and then also building those soft skills with our students. The more time that we have with them, a better opportunity for that. Challenges, this would be probably your most expensive model to implement. That would, based on feedback from Ms. Eldridge and Dr. Zambezi, we're looking at an increase of 12 to 15 FTEs that you would have to have at LHS in high school. So we're talking an estimated cost of a minimum of $700,000 is what we would anticipate to implement a block scheduling model. Sometimes extended class periods are not always as good for some kids as it is others, so that could be a potential challenge. Also, it would be changes in the daily and weekly routines for our kiddos, and then would require professional development and training for our staff with implementing, because it's going to look very different when you're doing instructing an extended period based on the length of our periods today in our 8 period. The staff survey, block scheduling would negatively impact student achievement. Most staff, our staff really did not feel like it would negatively impact, maintain the legacy of excellence. It was kind of neutral on that area, would improve teacher staff retention. Across the board, we're pretty equal on that opinions. And again, the non-applicable, that's probably going to be your elementary teachers and your Sloan teachers who are not currently implementing it. So, and then about remaining in the district, it was kind of neutral on that as well too. For parent surveys, our parents felt like it would negatively impact student achievement, and did not agree that it would be the best option for maintaining the legacy of excellence for LISD students, and that it would not improve teacher staff retention. Then the 4-day student school week, the findings of the committee, possible benefits, it would not be an additional cost. When we look at Lovejoy 2030, and then we also look at our financial sustainability committee's work, we were charged to look for some non-monetary compensation for staff. this could be considered that for our staff members. It could possibly benefit teacher staff morale. It does provide that extended time for planning for our teachers and staff. It increases opportunities to collaborate across content areas, grade levels, special education programming in GT. So with that being said, is that our grade level teachers or our department teachers would plan regularly, but we don't have as many opportunities as we'd like to have to bring in some of the specialized classroom teachers so that we can plan. And many of our students through GT and special education are some in inclusive settings. So that planning would be a positive. And that then in turn, that could have a positive impact on our student achievement for students identified for those programs. Felt like because of the extended school day, it would increase some times for more intervention, enrichment, and tutoring during the school day. Based on some studies that the committee did with districts that have implemented this model, the feedback from those districts, it has attracted and retained some veteran teachers. In fact, I was looking at a district over the weekend that they're now advertising themselves as so-and-so ISD, home of the 4-day student school week. So definitely districts are using this as a way to recruit and retain teachers. And then the theme came out also, or the committee felt like that it would improve teacher staff retention, and then it would increase time for quality planning that can positively impact student achievement. The possible challenges: no cost savings. If this model was implemented, it would create challenges, childcare challenges for families as well as staff. On those days that staff would have to work, that kids were not here. It would extend daily school hours. The committee recognized that, and then it really would not be a change for fine arts or athletic class schedules as a result. So really from this standpoint, you probably saw more significant differences from staff and parents on the opinions of this model. A pretty high percentage of staff felt like that it disagreed that it would negatively impact student achievement. And again, if the model's done well, and that's some of the research that was being studied of districts that had done it, because that's a question that just has popped up. Again, this is fairly new, so the depth of the research is not there yet, but from districts that have implemented it, it was either student performance was kind of neutral, or they saw increases in student performance. Staff felt like it would improve student attendance. It would support maintain the legacy of excellence. It would improve their personal attendance. It would improve teacher staff recruitment, retention, and support. And if you look at the percentage, they are motivating staff to remain in the district was pretty high. And then we just were curious just to see percentage of staff that would possibly need childcare as a result of the days that they'd be working. Then you look at parents. 4-day instructional week would negatively impact my child's academic achievement. More agreed that it would than disagreed. It would improve my child's attendance. 32% said they agree, 49% said they disagree. Benefits my child's emotional well-being, and again, more disagreed with that statement than agreed. And it would be the best option for maintaining a legacy of excellence. 54% of our parents disagreed, 25% said they agreed. But the similarity that you probably saw the staff survey, we had more parents said that they did agree that it would improve teacher staff retention and recruitment. And then we asked parents as well, of the 1,191, 22% said they would need childcare services on the non-school day of the week. So, and then additional staff planning days, possible benefits. It wouldn't be any additional cost to the district. It would give some extended planning time for teachers and staff. It would create those opportunities to collaborate and not only plan across content areas, but grade levels, special education staff, planning with general education and GT. Would help with teacher staff morale. Again, it's another example of how the district can offer a non-monetary compensation for staff. It the committee identified it would improve teacher staff retention and recruitment. Also came up is that it might create some opportunities for enrichment camps and extended student learning opportunities for interested families. So I think for both these models, if you added in some additional planning days, the district could offer some camps and some enrichment like we do very much during the summer. And on those days that kids would not be in school, and you could possibly do it for the 4-day student school week too. And then increased time for quality staff planning that could possibly impact student achievement. Challenges, no cost savings. Childcare would be would possibly be a challenge for families and staff with additional days that kids are not in school. It would extend our daily school hours somewhat because we'd have to decrease the number of student instructional days. And there would not be a change for fine arts or athletic class schedules. Staff survey, very low percentage of staff felt like it would have a negative impact on student achievement. Kind of more so neutral impact on whether it would improve student attendance. How would it improve a personal attendance? Again, more so of a neutral impact. Staff did felt like that if they could have additional planning days, it would really help maintain that legacy of excellence. And so that's that opportunity to prep and prime and be ready for instruction. Felt like it could possibly would be a positive for teacher staff recruitment and retention. And 33% more so agreed than disagreed that it would motivate them to stay in the district. From parents, parents said that it would disagree that it would negatively impact students' achievement, and more so neutral or disagreed that it would impact attendance in any way. Same thing with their child's emotional well-being. Agreed that it would support maintaining that legacy of excellence, and a higher percentage of parents felt like it would help support retaining teachers here in the district. So when you look at the 3 areas, when we look at the 5 models, as I mentioned earlier, the model that would have the greatest impact on responding to revenue challenges is your 7-period day. And the committee overwhelmingly felt like that was probably the one where when you really crunch the numbers and understand that would have the greatest impact. The greatest impact on teacher staff retention and recruitment, the 2 models, of course, are the 4-day student instructional week and the model if you added additional staff planning days. And then really consistently, when looking as we were digging into the research, that really we couldn't find anything that really had a negative impact on would have a negative on students, because it's how you implement the models. So if you do it with quality, then that should be a neutral impact. So just next steps of the work of the committee. And again, I put feedback on here because this is going to be constant feedback as we're working through this over the next several weeks. The committee is going to be reconvening this Friday, reviewing feedback that we gathered through the survey, also from this meeting. We'll be gathering additional information and update findings. We'll provide an update at the February 27th board meeting, and we're also going to be meeting, some representatives will be present for the Lovejoy Financial Sustainability Committee when it reconvenes in March. And then tentatively right now, we're hoping to bring administration will bring recommendations to the Board of Trustees at the March 27th board meeting. And reasoning for that, because if we're looking, there's a couple of different factors when we look at recruitment and retention. That's going to be the season that we start looking at recruitment of staff. The financial one is probably not, it's a little bit more muddy just because of the legislative session and not knowing where we're going to be at that point. And again, the whole focus was staying on these 3 areas, and that's our why. And I'm going to leave it up now for questions. And again, these 4 people over here are going to help us with that too. So questions, comments, feedback?
When we get updates at the next meeting on the cost savings for 7 period versus 8 period, can you break out Willow versus high school and not just all or none?
Absolutely.
And then the other, I understand and I agree with your comment about it's about the execution on being able to not have a negative impact on legacy of excellence. But if we are exploring more the 7 period day, I would want to understand better how that's not going to have a negative impact with less opportunities and how that would be executed to accomplish that.
So I think it's important to note at this point that this is obviously a survey preliminary data to establish a baseline for a committee to do its work, and that obviously no conclusions or recommendations have been drawn. I think the baseline established with the data provided is a helpful starting point. And I think we'll have to weigh out the cost benefit of all these decisions. But certainly appreciate the work that's been done so far and the data that we've got to start with, for sure. Any other questions? All right, with that, we're going to take 3 minutes, 3 whole minutes, and we'll be right back.
Are we exiting soon?
turn, a little overeager this morning. So we wanted to talk to you this morning about the pathway to our 23-24 budget adoption. This will be more about process and timeline, and you can expect to get some numbers on February 27th is when we'll really dig in, as Ms. Cabrera indicated earlier in the meeting. But I did want to refresh everyone's memory about how we got here, and that for the current year, the 22-23 budget development, we took a number of actions to get us prepared. That included a comprehensive assessment of our current state, that capacity assessment, an updated demographic study, a staffing efficiency study. We also developed a 3-year budget projection. We formed a community-based financial sustainability committee that recommended consideration of a VATRE. Our board set budget priorities, restoring the fund balance, employee compensation, attendance, and enrollment. We went through a zero-based budgeting process that achieved, oh, and I forgot a zero, 300,000 in additional efficiencies, and then implementation of financial efficiency measures. So last school year, we had 600 employees approximately, and we now have approximately 520 employees. We did about 1.3 million in staffing and programming efficiencies, and about $178,500 from other cost savings projects. We did put 2.4 million back into fund balance at the end of the 21-22 school year. So I just want to emphasize the amount of work that all of our leaders did, both at the campus level and at the district level, to make sure that we were making progress on our financial sustainability goals. Unfortunately, as the Financial Sustainability Committee dug into our financial reality and our financial projection, as Ms. Cabrera said earlier, we've got kind of a very challenging combination of stable to declining in student enrollment and rising property values, which is not our friend in the state funding formula. So the Financial Sustainability Committee, that group of stakeholders, asked that we consider a VATRE as a means to facilitate financial sustainability, and you, the board, called for that VATRE. That took place in November of 2022, and as we all know, that was unsuccessful. That measure did fail, and that was what I believe our community communicating to us, that they want us to go about addressing our financial sustainability, our revenue challenges in a different way. So we do have some current challenges facing us as we develop the 23-24 budget. We want to make sure we're retaining Lovejoy ISD's legacy of excellence. We have numerous things in our district that make us different and distinguish us from other districts, and we want to ensure our students continue to have an excellent experience. We also are facing a crisis in terms of teacher and staff retention, recruitment, and support. We've talked about this before, and the fact that 43,000 Texas educators left the profession last year. We know that based on some current research that's been done, 77% of educators have considered leaving the profession, and 72% of educators have taken actual concrete steps to do so, whether it be updating a resume, whether it be conducting a job search while they're currently employed. Some of the reasons that teachers and educators are indicating is pay, time challenges, lack of respect, and workload. So we're digging through those from multiple facets, but it's important to understand that as we face planning for our budget, we need to keep this concern with retention and recruitment at the forefront of our mind. We also want to make sure we are responding to our revenue challenges. Despite these significant efficiency measures and revenue opportunity priorities that we've set, we are still in the midst of some serious challenges when we look ahead at our budget projections, and we want to make sure we're being responsible in terms of short and long-term financial sustainability. Unfortunately, the second two, the teacher, staff retention, recruitment, and support, and the revenue challenges don't play well together. So as we move forward, it's very important we keep in mind some contextual factors.
We've got declining enrollment. We have re-engaged with our demographer. We have met with him a couple times. We've actually scheduled an additional meeting because we continue to have some concerns about those numbers. If you will recall, for this current year budget, we based our budget on 4,210 students. That was lower than what that updated demographic study projected, but based on what we knew about student registration, our current numbers, we felt it important that we go at that level. Thankfully, we did, because our current enrollment is 4,243. And so we did really well at building our budget on that number. It's critically important that we really dive into what's going on with our enrollment to make sure we responsibly plan for 23-24. We also know our context includes a legislative session with a lot of talk about school finance. And so making sure we're paying attention to that and keeping that in mind is really critical. And then we know we've got those increased property taxes as well. So as we look at 23-24, we are asking that you all give us direction in terms of budget priorities. We are proposing that we stay consistent with those priorities that you set last year, but it is certainly our position that we're deferring to you on what those priorities are. Fund balance, employee compensation, attendance, and enrollment, as you'll recall, is what the priority was for building the 22-23 budget. When we look at the maintenance and operations budget and those development considerations for next school year, we are engaging in zero-based budgeting round 2, implementation of staffing ratios and scaling of staff to enrollment, keeping in mind as we decline in enrollment, our staffing needs to be proportionate to that student enrollment. Otherwise, it doesn't work in terms of budget. We've got to evaluate our program structures to look at if there are more efficient ways to deliver our services to our students. A master scheduling study, which you just heard a report from Dr. Tinsley on that, as well as an assessment of fees on the 27th. On February 27th, we will have some updated information for you in regard to fees. And then number 6, reconvene the Financial Sustainability Committee. So we are going to be pulling that committee of stakeholders back together here in March. We anticipate that will be for approximately 2 meetings to update them on our current financial picture, get some feedback, and have that dialogue. This also gives us the opportunity, because there are parents that serve on this committee, to have some additional conversations that are more in depth in regard to our master scheduling study. In regard to a projected timeline, we've got today on here the February 14th workshop where we are looking at that master schedule study initial update, this pathway to 23-24 budget adoption, and then we had a bond project and capital needs update. On February 27th, we will have another budget workshop. We will have a legislative session update, a master schedule study presentation, some more information on TIA, which is the abbreviation for Teacher Incentive Allotment. And then we will have additional information for you on capital needs for your consideration. Then if you look, I've got a TBD over March, and I've got a question mark and budget workshop. We do not currently have a budget workshop on the calendar for March. The initial rationale for that was because of that week in spring break. We don't always have budget workshops each month if there's a break. But given what we're needing to do in regard to moving this timeline forward towards 23-24 budget adoption, we really feel like we need an additional opportunity to come together and share information and have discussion and dialogue. So we are recommending that we add that. We're also recommending that be an evening meeting. Of course, when that date is established, we will be sure that that is communicated out to our community and it is posted in accordance with all of the open meetings requirements. At that meeting, we will have a programming restructure presentation, special education compensation plan. You earlier heard Dr. Tinsley talk about some things in the area of special education that we want to make sure that we are strategically putting in place. One of those things would be things related to compensation. And if you'll recall from previous years, you do not adopt the overall compensation plan until the June meeting when you adopt the budget. However, should you want to do so, you would have the ability to adopt a compensation plan that is specific to this area, which we believe will position us more strongly in regard to retention and recruitment of critical needs staff in this area. Additionally, you'll have a capital needs presentation and potentially have a presentation on it'll be an action item, I anticipate, where we ask for your consideration of capital needs, some of which we mentioned today, that you will get more detail on as we move forward. And then March 27th, regular board meeting, again, another board workshop, employee compensation presentation, legislative session update, first round of contracts, consider special education compensation plan, potentially, depending on our timeline, we'll see whether we're able to do that at the March workshop or the regular March meeting. Consider programming restructures, consider master schedule options, and consider capital needs. We then move into April, where we've got compensation considerations that'll continue to be a part of the discussion. At the April 24th regular board meeting, again, a budget workshop, legislative session update, second round of contracts, as well as, of course, compensation considerations continue. I am sure that May 9th board workshop will be really important and have a lot of good content. We just didn't have anything specific to list that related to our budget development at this time, but I would anticipate by the time we get there, there may be some specific information that you all want us to dive into more deeply or that we feel there's a need to share. And then, of course, May, another budget workshop, legislative session update. And then as we move into June, that June board workshop is when you will get the 23-24 budget proposal as well as the proposed compensation plan in anticipation of June 19th recommendation for adoption of those things. June 19th is also when that tax rate adoption occurs. Ms. Cabrera talked about the INS side of things a little bit, and we want you to keep in mind, just because there is that tie-in with that budget adoption process, that we are looking at strategic utilization of bond funds and how that interplays with our M&O budget and our 23-24 budget development. We will also be looking deeply at department capital needs, and all of our department leaders are engaging in a needs assessment. We are going to also utilize a third party for a facilities assessment. We need to bring in some expertise so that we're able to really understand what's going on with our facilities and where we might be at end of life with some critical systems, as well as formation and convening of a capital planning committee. If you'll recall, this committee was already named, and we have pushed back the timeline for that committee to actually come together and meet, because we feel pretty strongly that we need to have our senior director in place as well as a CFO in place, because they will be critical in regard to leading some of this work. So we will absolutely be getting to this, and really the more time that goes by, we are continuing our work. So we really will be bringing, I think, even increased substance to that committee on a more expedited basis because of that gap in time and the way that we're using that. What questions can I answer for you?
What's being done in round 2 different on the zero-based budgeting versus what we went through last year? And I guess I'm just curious what round 2, if we anticipate additional savings from that, or is it potentially that, are we putting caps in place? How, maybe what?
So we are utilizing a similar process in regard to zero-based budgeting. I think it is a responsible practice, particularly when we're facing some of the budget challenges. Additionally, we've got a number of leaders that are relatively new to their position. And when they went through the first round of zero-based budgeting, they were very new to their position. And so at this point in time, a lot of them have a much deeper level of insight about their program's needs, the priorities that they have set, and they've had more time to look at, are there efficiency measures that could be put into place, right? So it could even be, you know, what software we're using, and is that really needed? Is that something we can strategically abandon? So I would say the conversations that we already have had are much deeper. Additionally, we also need to understand that zero-based budgeting should identify anything where we have maybe underfunded. Because we also don't want to get ourselves into a dire position in regard that something that inflation is going to impact, or again, that there's critical, life cycle of something, or renewal of something that's coming. So we have to think about those things as well, and that process is causing that to happen. Cabinet, is there anything else that you all would mention in that regard?
Okay, so that answer, we shouldn't necessarily assume that there's a lot more in savings. We just want to make sure we're being as efficient as possible in all of these areas. And then number two, is it possible, I never thought to ask this before, but that there's anything being spent out of M&O that might possibly be possible to move to the INS side that has just been done a certain way for a long time? Have we looked at that in great detail?
That was actually the very first thing I did, and believe it or not, we have absolutely nothing in the current budget that addresses any type of life cycle replacements or standards. All of that was scrapped out of the budget. And so that's why we're looking at possibly addressing those needs out of the bond funds. But at some point, you will have to build a replacement cycle into your M&O side.
Thank you for the update. And with that, we are adjourned.